Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage the Chief Customer Officer, Kristi Faltorusso.
Goodbye to the one that I once knew.
Good morning, everyone. Did everyone have a great day yesterday? Awesome. Well, we want to welcome you back to day 3 of CS100. I got to tell you, last year was my first CS100 ever, and I always love to tell this story because I've been in customer success for over a decade, and I've spent the past 10 years attending tons of customer success conferences. Most of them were large, big conferences where I felt like, wow, you're going to get the best of all of the content and get access to all of the brightest minds in customer success. But I'd always walk away from those events feeling like I didn't quite get what I was looking for. Like I somehow missed the mark, either from content or my ability to create new, lasting relationships. Then when I joined ClientSuccess and I had the ability to attend CS100, I finally understood what everyone had been talking about for years. This event is so magical, and I hope that all of you are experiencing the same magic that I experienced for the first time last year. I was able to really, truly connect with my friends. You know, when I look around this room, I do see many of you as my personal friends, many of you on Instagram with me, I watch your families, we talk regularly, we text. So these are my friends. To spend time with you all is so meaningful. Then you layer in amazing content. I remember sitting here in this room last year listening to all of the fantastic speakers that we had selected. And I remember going through the review with them and looking at their content and thinking like, wow, this is gonna be good. But then hearing them and listening to their stories, it was so powerful. Then being able to spend time in this beautiful, amazing resort. Now, before I joined ClientSuccess, I'd never been to Utah. I'm a New York native, so the West Coast is like, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. And Utah, sadly, just was never on my list. No offense, Utah. But when I got here, oh my God. I look around and I'm like, this is our country. We live here. We have access to this. This is like a postcard. I was showing my husband and my daughter. I'm like, look, this is where I am. My daughter's like, cool, Bob Ross painting. Awesome, nice. Good for you. I'm going to school now. This is what CS100 brings together. Amazing content, wonderful, brilliant leaders with a backdrop of one of the most majestic places I've ever visited. And so my hope is that when I attended my first time, for those of you who are new and this is your first CS100, I hope that as you head home, you take away the exact same experience that I had last year. So let me ask you, how many of you are attending CS100 for the first time this year? Now leave your hand up if you feel the magic that I just described. I love that for you. And I hope many of you will return back next year to share in this experience again. Now, we have kept this intimate intentionally. It's only 100 people by design, because hopefully, as you walk away from this event, you will have created real, long-lasting relationships. Now, let me ask you, raise your hand if you've met somebody new who you would now consider a friend. Okay, very good. I was hoping everyone's hand would go up. Even if it's just me, I could be your friend. But that's what's special about this. It's not overwhelming with 20,000 people where you're trying to find somebody and connect and not feel awkward sitting alone at lunch. We've intentionally designed it so that you will have real relationships, real conversations, and walk away with a real network that you can trust, that you can rely on, and that you can turn to. Because at the end of the day, as leaders, that is what we need. Now, again, one of the things I get to do, it's the privilege that I get to do, is work with Dave on curating the content for this event. And I will tell you, it is probably the hardest thing that we do, is trying to figure out who to select, because there are so many wonderful leaders out there doing so many transformative things and have so many compelling stories. So it's really difficult for us to select just a few and make sure that it's the right content with the right context that you're going to be able to leverage. Because one of the things we want to make sure is that as you walk away from this event, you're going to be able to take some of the insights that you've learned and apply them tomorrow. That's the real value. right? You don't want to hear theoretical things. You don't want to hear possible scenarios. You want to hear what are the things that I can do tomorrow to strengthen my team, to strengthen my business, and to drive real outcomes. So yesterday, hopefully you all enjoyed Tessa White. Has anyone ever heard of Tessa before yesterday? Will all of you read her book now after hearing her keynote? That's what I thought. You know, it was different if you had attended last year and years prior, different type of keynote. But as I spoke with so many of you yesterday, the feedback was phenomenal. Everyone really loved what she had to say and the value that she brought. And again, a new perspective on leadership and how we need to lead out in the future. Now, something else that we did new was based off of the feedback we received last year were the breakout sessions. One of the pieces of feedback that we got from the survey that we sent out, and we will be sending out a survey again after this event today, one of the pieces of feedback we got is that you all wanted more access to collaboration, having real conversations around challenging scenarios that you're all facing. So we did these workshops, these breakouts. How many of you enjoyed that? How many of you learned something new or got a different perspective on a challenge that you're all facing? Great. Now, I don't know that we nailed exactly what the feedback was intended to provide us, but I hope that we did. We're trying to facilitate more conversations so that you all get more value and share ideas. One of the things that I loved personally about the breakouts yesterday is that there weren't two tables that made the same recommendations, which means we're all thinking very differently. And what I love more than that is that we can all honestly probably say, customer success is not a one-size-fits-all model. And as I say, it's not even a one-size-fits-most. It's going to be different everywhere you go. Your business is different. Everything you do is different. So hopefully that got you thinking differently about new ways that you can go and design things, whether it's your health score, how you present to your board, or even the ways that you're communicating internally with your teams around things like compensation. All right, so don't worry, I'll go faster, I promise. One of the other things that I want to share is just this idea of making new memories. So one of my favorite things about working at ClientSuccess is Dave Blake. Honestly, as a person, yes, literally probably one of my favorite things about ClientSuccess and working at ClientSuccess. But one of my favorite things that he does is every Friday after our town hall, he tells us to go make a new memory. And at first, I guess I never really thought much about that. But then as every Friday he would send us off and tell us to go make a new memory, I started to become more deliberate about making new memories. I started to become intentional about the memories I would make with my friends, my family, by myself. And I thought that was so special. And I thought, what a beautiful thing that a leader would want you to make sure that that's what you're spending your time on. Not more work, not catching up on email, making memories. And so while I'm sure you all have tons of photos in your phones, and I hope that you do, how many of you made a new memory yesterday? Good. How many of you did an activity that you'd never done before? Diana, what'd you do? You did leather journal making? That's great. How'd it come out? Jeff, what'd you do yesterday? Pottery. That's never did pottery before. Awesome. Who did zip lining for the first time ever? Nobody? Everyone did it before? Okay. All right. Fine. All right. All you risk takers. I only did zip lining once. It was on this mountain. I'm not confident that I'll do it again. Horseback riding? Any first horseback riders? No. Okay. All right. So no risk takers in the audience. That's fine. Anyone get a massage? Oh, that counts. Good for you. Good for you. I love that for you. But the idea here is that we made new memories and hopefully made new friends in the process. And that's what this event is all about. I think at the end of this, if you take away one piece of information, one piece from any presentation, go apply that, awesome. But hopefully what will stick with you is how special this adventure was. So we have a fantastic lineup today of wonderful, wonderful speakers. And my ask to all of you is that you stay. If you don't have a flight, if you don't have anything getting in your way of the wonderful content that we have set up for today, I ask that you stay. My friend Jeff here, he's closing us out. I would hate for you to miss that content, right, Jeff? Tell everybody you want them to stay. Stay. See? Jeff wants you to stay. I want you to stay. Please. There really is some fantastic content scheduled for today. I wouldn't want you to miss it. Yes, it will be recorded. It's not the same. So please, if you can, hang around. Now, that said, I'm gonna get into my presentation. I'm gonna make sure that I keep us on as close to time as possible, so I'm gonna watch my timer here. I've got 25 minutes. I think I can do it. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a fast talker. Anybody who's listened to me ever will probably agree. So we're gonna get through my presentation today. So what I'm gonna cover is how we can design sustainable success. Now, last year's presentation was a little bit more about ownership and accountability as leaders, and trying to move away from this victim mindset that we all kind of had coming off the pandemic and some of the situations in the economy. I don't like that idea, right? Like that we all kind of play victim. We are in control of our teams, of the work that we do, our priorities. We own this as leaders. And I always say it's an honor and a privilege to make hard decisions, to sit in the seats that we do and have the ability to influence change. But the challenge that I saw is that we weren't changing enough. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do we build and design sustainable success? Because that's what it comes down to. Do you know that this past year, I'm not talking about 2022, 2023, 235,639 tech layoffs to date. How many of you were laid off this year? It's okay, don't be shy. We're literally all friends. We've just admitted that. Great, yes. And it sucks. How many of you know somebody that's been laid off? Exactly. This is the reality that we are living in. Now, while there have been these layoffs, and we are seeing some improvements, Q1 was brutal, Q2 is less brutal, Q3 is showing signs of hope, but we still had over 20,000 people in tech laid off this quarter. And this was only as of last week. Which means even if we can just look at this trend, and I'm not a math person, but I'm gonna say at least 10,000 in Q4, right, if we look at the trend. 10,000 more people, our peers, our friends, our colleagues, will lose their jobs before the year's up. That's terrifying. But this is the reality that we've all had to face in 2023. How many of you had to do layoffs on your team? In your company? Yeah. We've all been a part of this. We've experienced it. It's impacted our teams, our people, ourselves, our self-esteem. I talk to leaders every single day that have been laid off. And the hardest thing for me is that I can't do anything about it. And I'm a fixer. Like, I'm like one of those people, I want to solve all world problems, and I can't. I can't help you get a job. There aren't jobs. I can't refer you to anything. There's not enough openings. And it is tough. But this is what we've been dealing with. Now, what's interesting about this is that customer success was one of the affected top 5 roles or positions affected this year. Customer success. You know, the function that's supposed to help retain our customers, because every CEO has said that that's the most important thing. Yet we were in the top 5 roles in a company eliminated as part of this. Now, some of these won't surprise you, right? Like HR, talent, sourcing, no shocker, right? There's no jobs. We're not hiring. We have less people. We need less resources for that. Software engineers, I thought that was interesting. Anyone surprised by that? I don't know, I was. Maybe they were stalling development. I don't know. That one surprised me. Marketing, again, not so surprising. Again, field marketing, I was thinking about like events and stuff, people's budgets being cut. Probably made a lot of sense. But customer success, I couldn't wrap my head around how that ended up in the top 5. And then PR, communications, and strategy, I guess, also kind of made sense to me. Why isn't sales on here? Now, listen, I love my sales team. I love all the salespeople. But if we can't sell more product, which is what I've heard from nearly everybody I spoke to, is, yeah, new sales is down, new logo sales is down. We're really focused on retention. We're really focused on expanding our install base. Then how did we end up in the top 5? It was amazing. I literally still can't believe some of the stats that I've been reading. But this is important data. And it's important because we need to figure out, I'm not going to say this because I actually don't agree with this, but I'll put it up here anyway. How many of you have worked with a leader or been in a room where someone said this? Has anyone felt crappy when they heard that? Again, I'm not a math person, but that doesn't math for me. More with less. You can do something different with what you have. That made more sense. That's what we have to do. Too many of us have been in rooms with leaders, with executives, with board members who have said, oh, well, you're just going to have to figure it out. You have to do more with less. How many of you have talked to your individual contributors, your frontline team, and asked them how this statement makes them feel? If you haven't, I encourage you to, because I will tell you, I have. And it feels like crap. Because as leaders, we're not the ones who get all the extra do more with less resources. They do. We haven't given raises because budgets are down, but we've given them more customers. We've given them more work. We've given them more projects. We've taken away technology and then said, oh, well, we're going to consolidate. Do you know what it takes to consolidate into another piece of technology? A lot more work. So we're giving them all of this additional work, and this is the message that we're sending. It's a crappy message, guys. I don't care if you like this, you say it, you believe it, that's fine. I don't, and I'll tell you, your frontline teams, they don't enjoy it either. It sends the wrong message. Now, this is my own red flag map of things that I've seen this year. So we did all these layoffs, right? We've got almost 300,000 layoffs. I know I rounded up, girl math. First thing, unrealistic business targets. So we laid off teams. We know that we're not growing new sales, but our targets are the same, and in some cases more aggressive if you took funding. So you've got unrealistic targets. You have the exact same strategy. How can you do the same thing that you were doing when you had more people, more technology, more resources, more time? That doesn't make sense. How are you doing the exact same thing? Now, fortunately, in the seat that I sit in, or unfortunately, I should say, there's cut back in technology. And I see this all the time. And I've got leaders that are basically in tears coming to me to say, like, my leadership team is just forcing me to consolidate. I have to move back into my CRM, or they're taking away all of these extra tools that we have. So now, not only are you saying do more with less, you're even taking away the technology that powers that. And increase sales focus. So now we're not even focused on the strategy, right? The consultation that we should be providing as customer success professionals. We're not focused on value. They want us to just drive upsells and sales. And when I say us, it's actually us in this room. We're the ones making these mandates. And it doesn't work. We have to change our approach. We have to do things differently. But this was all I saw this year, guys. Now, I hope some of you tell me later, Kristi, this is actually not what was going on in my organization, because I would applaud you. I would celebrate you, because you're probably doing it right. But the majority of folks I'm talking to, this is their reality. I came across this quote, and I was like, oh, wow, I had to read it twice. But I loved what it said. Nothing is less productive than to make more efficient what shouldn't be done at all. Right? You might have to read it twice too. It's okay. I read it a couple times. And then I was like, wow. We're optimizing things we shouldn't even be doing. And then that felt powerful. That felt like, you're right. What are we doing? We're spending time trying to automate things that we maybe shouldn't be doing. We're trying to drive more efficiency around things maybe we shouldn't be doing. Instead of saying, let's rethink all of this and think, what do we actually need to do to make our customers successful? We're just trying to keep the exact same thing intact and just continue to do it, just continue to optimize it. But never once did it dawn on us that maybe we don't have to do those things. Anybody in this room get rid of EBRs, QBRs as part of their process? I applaud you. The rest of you should consider it. Just kidding. I just hate them, sorry. But it's all of these types of things, the things that we've been doing for years because that's what we've always done, because what we think has to be done, because what we think is customer success. instead of thinking, what do I need to do to make my customer successful? Not what are the things my team needs to be doing, what defines customer success activities. You're wrong. We can't be focusing our time and attention around that. We have to rethink. We have to do better. So when I started to change things at ClientSuccess, and listen, I'm gonna give you the truth. We are a small team. We are lean. I try to do the best that I can. We are not perfect. I am not perfect. I have not done everything that I want to or need to do, but I am committed to making change as often as I can. Because it's what we have to do. Because we are lean. Because the economy is changing. Because our product is evolving. Because our customers' needs are changing. And that's your reality too. Your customers' needs are changing, your product is evolving. We can't keep doing the same things over and over. So when I thought about this concept of, okay, we need to create sustainable success, which, what does that even mean? It means in any scenario, in any market climate, can I be successful with the people, processes, and technology that I have in place? And that's what I thought about, which required me to say, well, I'm gonna have to change quite a bit. Now, I'm still on my own personal journey of change and evolution, and there's a lot more change I've got slotted for Q4. Obviously, I couldn't think about anything while CS100 was under planning, but now that it's almost over, I will get back to the drawing board, and that will be my focus for Q4. So when I thought about this, okay, my process, it's my strategy, right? I had to think, what is required to make my customers successful? What is required? Let me bold and underline that word, required. Not what is nice, what do they want, what do I want to give them? Simply, what is required to make a customer successful? Because that's what I want to start with. The second thing was your team. Now, for those of you who did have to make changes, reduce in force, lay people off, hopefully you went through this exercise before you made those decisions, and hopefully it wasn't just based off of compensation and trying to figure out the math. Because one of the things that you're going to be required to do is figure out, do I have the right people with the right skill and will to do the work? Now I say that because that's very specific, right? The right skill and the will. Because people like change to happen with them, not to them. And that's an important distinction. So just because your whole model needs to change and you think someone is capable of doing the things you need them to do, please make sure that they're bought into that. And if you were a leader or a frontline individual contributor, don't let anyone make changes to you. Make sure that change is happening with you, that you are a part of that. No one dictates your career but you. And that's how I feel about my team. I want the change to happen with them, but I have to assess skill and will. And the last is we need to optimize and or expand the technology stack. Now, this doesn't mean go buy a whole bunch of tools and platforms unless you need to buy ClientSuccess, in which case I very much recommend that you do that. But everything else, you've got to figure out, what do I have access to in this company? Now, I don't mean in your team. Let me tell you something. I used to work for a SaaS apps management company. Now, this is a lot of like SaaS apps management. And basically, we used to do all this analysis to help IT teams like manage their tech stack, even like shadow IT, so all the tools that your team is using that they're not telling you that they're using. But we found that each company is using on average 250 tools. That's a lot of tools. Go speak to other departments and find out what tools and technology they're using. What does your company already have access to? Because that might give you the ability to buy a couple licenses. That's inexpensive. It's cheaper than procuring new technology. So I went and did that, right? What do I have access to? What can I use? What can I do differently? There's a ton of free tools out there too, guys. A lot of resources for us. So when this came down to it, I said, okay, I'm gonna do these three things, right? I'm gonna review my strategy, I'm gonna assess the team, we're gonna optimize and expand our tech stack, or how we're using the things. So when I thought about how to wrap my head around how I wanted to approach this, the first one was with process. So I need to map the customer lifecycle with a human and scaled track. Now, most leaders will design their customer journey or their customer lifecycle for their highest tiered segment. And then they start to chip away at what their smaller or less valuable customers will get. Now, how many of you have ever tried to take one of your biggest customers and say, oh, you can't have that CSM for 8 hours a week any longer, you can only speak to them once a month? Have you ever tried to take away something from your customers, something that they have come to know and value? That's hard. Even as charming as I am, and I'm pretty darn charming, it is a hard conversation to have. So what I thought about is, okay, then let's flip this. Let's build it with no people and only insert people where people add value. So I started to ask myself these questions, right? How will you ensure your customers are successful driving value from your company? Right? These are the questions I had to ask myself so that I made sure I was designing and building things the right way. What level of training and enablement is required, right? How will you build and nurture relationships over time? How will you manage key milestones and processes? Now, I'm not saying that these are the only questions, but these helped get me to think differently, right? So what are the questions you need to be asking yourself about the processes that you've created around your customer lifecycle and journey? So what did I do at ClientSuccess? I love to give examples. Now, again, I've done everything. I've got a lot of work to do. But some of the things that we did is, the first is we optimized our onboarding portal. Well, guess what? I built an onboarding portal with Google Sites. Guess how much money Google Sites is? It's free if you have Google. So I built an entire portal that tracks the entire onboarding lifecycle. It's got an entire resource repository with videos and content. And this was my baby for months until it went live. Our customers love it. They love it. And it cost ClientSuccess nothing. And for me, it was my pleasure. Because to see my customers happy, to see my team have a framework that works, that is my job. The second thing, we don't do EBRs and QBRs. Now, of course, if our customers want them, we were happy to do them. But we decided, well, what is something else that we can do and use our time with our customers that will drive value? So we shifted to a platform success audit, or a PSA, which also feels like public service announcement, which kind of means the same thing. So what we do is we go audit our customers' deployment of ClientSuccess. We rate them, we give them scores, we tell them how to optimize it against best practices, we have a great dialogue, we provide them with a plan coming out of that, we work collaboratively on that plan, and then they chip away at optimizing it. We get more adoption, more engagement, and more usage as a result of this exercise. I have never seen those results from an EBR or QBR. Maybe I'm just not as good as you guys at them. And the last is we deployed a community. Thanks to our friends at Higher Logic, Vanilla Forums, or Vanilla, sorry, dropped the forums, we deployed our customer community, CS Connect. Now, this became a content hub where we are hoping to connect our customers. Now, what I will tell you is this is no small feat. This is actually a lot of work, but we're hoping to invest a lot more time to help our customers get as much out of it as possible. Because what we heard from our customers is that they want to learn from each other. Well, guess what? If they're learning from each other, that's less of a drain on my team. So when we think about optimizing, that was a great way for us to start. So these were 3 programs or projects that we deployed, we rolled out, we optimized in 2023 to drive more value, to do something different with what we had. The next thing was people, right? Assess the best use of the people you have remaining on the team. So I wondered, right, what are the strengths of the folks that I've got on this team? What's the current leverage ratio of each of the members, meaning how many customers they have? What roles were eliminated as part of this, right? What is the coverage plan gonna be? How can we leverage resources in other teams to help us? So we had to go through a skills and experience assessment to say, like, okay, great, what do we have? What are we doing? This is what I would definitely recommend you all do. Figure out if you need to do a reorg or create new roles as a result of it. Just because you thought you needed 20 CSMs and now you have 10 doesn't mean you can't be successful. Create new roles. Break things out. You have to think differently. You're not just trying to work with less people. You have to rethink your entire approach. Then there was technology. Now, at ClientSuccess, we use ClientSuccess. I am fortunate to not have to beg and plead with my leadership team to have a customer success platform. It is a blessing. I understand that. I know that all of us have that luxury. But you have tools in your tech stack, and I know that. So how can you think about how we can optimize the tools that we have to be better? So questions I would ask myself, right, is all the technology that we have being used optimally? Now, how many of you would say all of your customers are using all of your technology perfectly? Right. Your job is to help your customers figure out how to get that value from it. That's my job, was how to help my customers figure out how to get the value from it. But it's also my job to make sure that my team is getting value from their technology that we have procured, that we have purchased for them. What other tools are being used by other teams? This goes back to what I said earlier. Your company is probably using a lot of technology that you don't know about. Licenses are cheaper than buying new technology. Can you add on? One license, maybe it's $100, maybe it's $1,000, but what can that investment do for your team? Are there other tools or platforms that your team would benefit from, right? Should you be buying something new? I don't know about you guys, but every time I turn around, there's a new tool or new tech or something else that someone is telling me about that I should be using, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have time to research these things. Maybe there's something out there that can help you. And then what systems can you leverage for automation? That's a reality. You've got to figure out a way to automate some manual tasks. So what I started to think about is, how can I optimize the technology that was in my tech stack at ClientSuccess? So this is just what we're using to help automate and optimize some of the processes for my team. Now, everyone's team maybe has a lot more tech than that. This is what I have today. So obviously, we're using ClientSuccess. That is my bread and butter. That is what I use to do everything. If you'd like to know how I use ClientSuccess, if you're using it today and you want to see how I'm using it, I'm happy to share. If you're not using it today, you want to know, happy to show you. We use Update AI to help us with call recording and meeting management. HubSpot, obviously, for communication. G Suite, I showed you what I did with Google Sites. Google Sites, Google in general, and Canva. If you want to get really creative, like on a nickel, I could show you. I'm very crafty. Intercom was helping with internal communication, in-platform communication, getting messages out to our customers, making them aware of things, and then Higher Logic for Vanilla, as I mentioned, for community. So these are just 6 things. I'm doing a lot with 6 things. I'm sure most of you probably have a lot more than 6 pieces of technology, and you're probably not doing a fraction of what I'm doing. And not because you can't, because you haven't taken the time to challenge yourself to think about what more can I be doing. And that's what I want you to do, is I want you to think, I've got nothing else, I can't add anything else. This is how you're going to build sustainable success, is optimizing what you have, is making the best use of these things. Instead, we keep buying more, which I'm sure is not a luxury we have today, but it was one that we had. So if I'm going to leave you with 3 pieces of feedback as you go back to your desks, whether it be home or in an office, what I want you to do is these 3 things. I want you to eliminate activities that don't drive value for your customers. And I don't want you to be the judge of value, because we usually don't know. Ask your customers. Ask your CSMs. Do not make assumptions on what you think is valuable. I guarantee you, if you actually do what I'm telling you to do, you won't be doing EBRs and QBRs anymore. Number 2, I want you to rethink how your technology is being used. Have we used every feature, every functionality, every part of this product to the best of our ability that matches the use cases that will drive value and long-term sustainability for my team, for my customers? And then lastly, measure the impact of the changes that you're making. That's important. Because what I don't want you to do is go back and make all these changes and then tell your boss that Kristi told you to make these changes, and then your NRR goes to crap. I cannot bear the weight of that burden. So please find a way to measure it. So even if you're doing small sample size, do some A/B testing, try some things. Highly encourage you to do that. But whatever you decide to do, it needs to be something you can measure. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. We're going to bring up our next speaker. Thank you.